What's up, Moto Buddies? Mike here from Taco Co. This is a 24 500 XWF model. It's been converted into a Ultra Sport. We've got a street kit on it. We've done a lot of improvements, major improvements, really, to overhaul this bike and to turn it into a machine that the rider will be able to use from Mexico all the way through Nevada and Utah. This is a rider who is very, very skilled, a very good rider, and will push this bike to its max. This is an example of a machine that is going in the hands of a sophisticated operator who knows how to use it, knows what it can do. You know, sometimes riders will be on a bike and the machine will, by many orders of magnitude, exceed, you know, their desire or ability to tap and push the potential of it. This one's going to go in the hands of somebody who completely knows how to use it and will use it. So that's exciting for us when we build a bike for somebody who is a very, very competent and then also discerning rider too. Some of the things that we do are, ultra high end, and we put a lot of time and pride into turning out a machine that has the ultimate capabilities. And I derive a lot of personal satisfaction out of the ones that go into the hands of somebody who will be able to maximize that and use it really what it's designed for, and the craftsmanship and work that we put into it. It will be pushed to the limits. And so this is one that I'm happy to turn over. So taking a look at some of the things that have been added, modified, changed, enhanced on this bike, there is a lot that goes into the pre-plan of a machine like this and the setup, and then understanding how that rider is going to use it, what his intended purpose is, what his use case is. And in this instance, we went with the XCF. So let's talk about really quick the differences between, so a headlight bike. Now, the Austrian manufacturers, so that would be Husqvarna Gas and KTM, there's really two classifications of single cylinder 250 to 501 size engine bikes. And there's a headlight bike and a non-headlight bike. And that typically breaks down to a competition bike won't have a headlight, and that bike will be a machine that is for closed course competition use only. And back in the day in California, they used to have a designation known as red sticker and green sticker, and that's sort of evolved into just red sticker only. But that designation really, again, closed course competition or not. When it's closed course bike, those don't have headlights. Race bikes, track bikes, those GNCC type bikes, they don't need a headlight, they don't have a headlight. And then if a bike has a headlight, that's generally classified as an enduro. And you'll see that in the model breakdown. So on the KTM side, that would be like the E-XCF, XCF-W. Husqvarna would be the FE or the FES. Gas now has the ES. And then on the two-stroke side, there would be like the Husqvarna TE. KTM has the XCW, and then Gas, I think, has the EC. So those are the denoters, the model breakdowns. Headlight bikes. We, Tacomoto, we specialize in the headlight bikes. We primarily work on those because they come with the type of equipment that out west we use, we need for Baja, the Baja 1000 racing that we support and supply equipment and machines for. The enduro riding that we do, the overland adventuring, BDR rides, TAT, those sorts of use cases all really lend themselves and demand a headlight and 6-speed, the 196 watt electrics. There's just features and equipment that come standard on those bikes, and then we enhance and add to that. So we're really about starting from that platform. Then you get into, once you have a headlight, then you get into, are you going to get a bike with a plate or not? And on the KTM side, you have the E-XCF versus the XCF-W. Husqvarna would have the FE versus the FES. On the Gas side, they only have the ES, which is only plated. They don't have like an off-road version. But on the Gas and Husqvarna side, or on the KTM and Husqvarna side, you can get plated versus non-plated. So this started off as a non-plated bike. And sometimes you might do that as a rider because your local dealer has availability one way or the other. There is a little bit of a wait savings on the non-plated bike by a couple of pounds. It's pretty insignificant. The general differences will be mirrors, turn signal running gear, the under fender will be different, the harness will have differences, so there's some electrical differences, horn, switch gear. Those are the primary differences between the off-road enduro headlight bike and then a plated enduro headlight bike. So the question comes up, are you better off with one and going in the direction, in the opposite direction versus the other? So on the Austrian bike side, there is no difference in the engine, drivetrain, power, exhaust, intake. All of those are exactly the same because the plated bike and the off-road green sticker bike, I use green sticker to just represent a lot of us out there know what that green sticker represents. And so I'll just use that as a shorthand for an EPA sound restricted, emissions restricted enduro bike. And why does KTM even have, so another question comes up sometimes is why do they limit the 500 to the green sticker controlled bike? Why not offer it as a closed course bike? The 350 and 450, their testing and their market research shows are the most desirable engine sizes for closed course competition, 500 for enduro. And so there's just a preference that riders have for the 3 different engine sizes, and then the enduro bike, the 500, that is not a suitable size, class, engine, and performance-wise in terms of being basically a long stroke 450. The 450 is a better track bike than the 500, but the 500 is not disqualified at all. It does fine, and a lot of riders use them on closed tracks, no problems. So are you better off getting a plated bike or getting a non-plated bike and then working in either direction? We would probably say that the one strong advantage of the plated bike is resaleability. It will protect your investment better because a plated bike is more desirable. And can you convert a plate, or let me say it like this, can you add a plate to the non-plated enduro bikes? Yes, you can, with the exception of states that use CARB standards, so California Air Resource Boards. Any state that operates under the operating principles guided by CARB, you will not be able to convert, that is to say, get a converted title, change the title from a off-road bike to a street legal bike in one of those states. And right now, in 2024, there's 13 states, and I think plus the District of Columbia that operate with those guidelines. So you take any of the non-plated bikes, any bike that did not come with a certificate of origin indicating 50 state compliance. This is all US spec stuff, by the way, if you didn't know already. You cannot take those titles and then convert them, turn them into to get a license plate on them. Can't do it in those states, and the 13 states. And then more are being added. Nevada will be added to that list soon. And I forget what the other states that are going to adopt that in 2025. There are states, however, that you can do that. And so if you live in South Dakota, Arizona, you can do the research. Montana, there's a handful of western states primarily where they're very friendly towards off-road motorcycles because those are wide open desert states where these machines are not only used for recreation, in many instances they're viable transportation for people in those states in terms of commuting. So there's a lot of legalities that surround and swirl with these motorcycles and how they're used and how they're regulated. Nothing I have said is actionable. That is to say, do not use anything that we ever say as legal advice, or do not make your purchase decisions based on anything you've heard a YouTuber say, especially us. You need to look up the codes and regulations in your local state, talk to the DMV experts in your state. There are private services that offer plate assistance. Those people are qualified, not us. I'm just giving you what I know by way of research and the questions that we ask and the understandings that we have. But these things change. And in 2024, this is sort of the lay of the land right now, but it will change. It will not be this way in the future. So again, back to that base question, should you get one bike over the other? So I think again, I think our general recommendation is protect your investment with the license plate from origination, so that as more states adopt those standards, you end up with a plate regardless of how things may change in one state to another. Some riders in the West don't care because they live in a state where it'll be open-ended, potentially indefinitely, at least for a while in the near future. They might be rebels. They may enjoy the process. There are some riders who like getting a off-road bike and then converting it. They feel that that's a little bit of a renegade move. Whatever your psychology is, whatever your reasoning is, go for what you think is best. But typically when somebody asks us, should I get a plated bike or non-plated, we will typically, again, for those reasons, resaleability and then just ease of access to regulated areas. So if you have a license plate on a bike, you are going to have more access to more areas. So national park lands, federal and state regulations require in almost all instances that you have an insured road legal vehicle to operate in those areas. And some riders out there I know don't care either which way they go, they do it. But if you're looking to stay, out of the crosshairs of, your local sheriff or a land manager, park ranger, have a plate on your bike and don't sweat it. You also then have the ability to insure that machine against total loss and theft. There's just many, many reasons why having a legitimate license plate on a motorcycle, on a dirt bike, makes tons of sense. And whether you do it through title conversion, which is what's happening here, or you do it through origination, either which way, having a plate is the way to go. That's why we specialize in these bikes, because we use them and advocate for use in all areas legally and with intelligence. So be a smart operator, be a courteous operator, and then have the proper paperwork on your bike so that you can do that safely and legally. So if you're going to convert a bike, like in this instance, then it's going to take a few things so that you can run it through your DMV process. And we offer those things. So for example, this bike now has a proper taillight. So it's got turn, run, and brake in one. And we use the Tidy Tail taillight to do that. And that's been accomplished there. The license plate frame here, we like this Enduro plate. Man, it's just great because if you fall down, your plate is going to flex around and it will not, in almost all instances, I've heard of so very few, not that it never could happen, and it does, but the instances of people bending plates or breaking off their plates or breaking off their tailpiece here is really dramatically reduced to very, very low levels with something like that. A flex plate from Moto Minded is very similar. It doesn't have this hinged effect, but just something where your plate is not rigid mounted. Another option is to run your plate in the landscape configuration, long. That's something that a lot of riders will do, and you can do that with or without a plate backing. Now, this cannot be mounted sideways. This can only be mounted in this configuration. But if you do a plate sideways, you'd either mount it directly to the under fender here on the bottom, or you could use like a more simpler rigid mount, or you could cut out from HDP plastic your own sort of plate holder to mount it to, right, in the long ways. And then some riders will zip tie their license plate to their backpack. So whatever you do, we have heard of a couple people who will put their plates like underneath here on the under fender. I don't know that that's my first choice because that means it's going to be really hard to see. So I like it either on the back of the bike or on your backpack. And then other riders, this is, I don't know about the legality of this, but we have heard other riders will make a really high quality photocopy of their plate and then laminate that and put that on their bike so that if it's stolen, lost, broken off, whatever, but visually you have the representation of a plate. And then you do have your proper insurance and registration paperwork with you. So just a few thoughts of a few things we have heard. Up front, we have added turn signals. These are our Tacomoto Flex signals. That's been integrated into our wiring harness kit for this bike to give it all of the streetable functions. Here is the Tacomoto Master left-hand switch. We've upgraded the right-hand switch. It's finicky and fussy and sometimes prone to malfunction, the stock OEM switch. So this is a massive upgrade over that. And we pretty much put these on all our bikes. But that is not necessary for the street conversion kit. This is just, I guess I'm just pointing that out since I'm here. So this here, and then you had a headlight before. These headlight bikes come with a headlight, but they are only equipped with like a on-off push button switch here that allows you to turn it on and off. And so with our kit, we have full authority over the light, high, low, and then off. And then our kit, if you've ever had an LED aftermarket light on a bike, you know that it automatically sets the high beam light to be basically on all the time, which is kind of annoying. And our kit prevents that, so you only have high beam light come on when you're in high mode. We have a horn now on this bike, and it lives here underneath, above the engine, underneath the airbox, and we like to put it here as opposed to in the stock form on a plated bike. The horn would live up here, and we like to move it away from there because you just increase a little bit of airflow. And the other main reason is because anytime you take the tank off now, you don't have to fool around with getting the horn back off and on, and it can be annoying. And we tend to take our tanks off a lot. Now, an average rider probably wouldn't do it anywhere near as much as we do with all the testing that we do, but it is still annoying to have your horn up there. So we just relocate it down there. You never have to think about it. You never have to move it or touch it. It's out of the way of the airflow. So that is a nice perk. And that, you don't have to do that just to do a conversion. You could just do that otherwise. Let's see, anything else? Yeah, so we have to put a micro switch on the brakes because the brakes do not come with the micro switch. So little challenging to see, but right here is the micro switch for the front. There's the wire for it. So that's the front brake switch. And then we add the rear brake switch, which is right here. And that's a pressure switch. So the front is a micro contact switch, and then the back is a pressure plunger switch. So with those things added and integrated together, you now have, and mirrors, I guess that might be the last thing. We really, really like the new version of the double take mirrors. This is a significant improvement and design upgrade from when it was the Ram arms. So what Ned over at Double Take has done, and I don't think we've talked specifically much about these or shown these, but absolutely I love pulling the other arms off bikes and putting these on because they're that much better. The knob is just really better. It's thinner and bigger, and so you get more torque onto it, so you can tighten this better. There's little knurling on the inside of the bores here for the ball, and so that holds the mirror much better. So the chances of the wind pushing this around is almost gone. He uses his own ball, so instead of the Ram ball, this is a little bit larger diameter. The base here is a little bit larger. And so they're not compatible. That is to say, you wouldn't be able to take the Ram arm and then move it over to or the double take arm and move it over to a Ram ball because Ram ball is smaller. He sends a kit out that's got universal hardware. So it has all the bolts for any fitment, for standard thread, reverse thread, 1 millimeter pitch or 1.5 millimeter pitch. So he sends the bolts for whatever you have. So it's almost a universal kit. You don't have to order or remember or know what bike you have and what bolts you need and what hardware pack to get. It's just all there. Super straightforward. So these are a massive improvement. The mirrors themselves are the same. It's the arm and ball situation that's all new, and we dig it. And then we mate that to, you can see here, this is the Moto arm over bracket. So this bracket is the master cylinder bracket, and you can see that we relocate the ball so it doesn't interfere with your throttle tube. The throttle tube can be in a normal position. You don't have to cock it really far forward or backwards to clear that. So that's super sweet. And then on the other side, we have one as well. And ours doesn't do anything tricky. It's just a nice, slick, new anodized piece, and it sort of becomes a matching set. But you do not need to do anything to the left side if you already have a stock one. And since this one didn't have it, obviously we had to add it, so we put ours on. Mirrors are great, love those. So that is sort of an overview of what it takes on these new generation bikes. The old generations are the same. You need the same type of equipment, but the harness would be different, and some of the ways you go about doing the conversion are a little bit different. In terms of a quick wrap up on The rest of the bike, back here on the rear wheel, Warp 9, these are the Elite series. This is a non-cush drive hub, and that's their strongest wheel set, oversized stainless steel spokes, dirt tricks on the rear sprocket, absolutely bulletproof. And speaking of bulletproof, bulletproof here on the axle block, swing arm guards, Cherby swing arm guards. These are the standard Pro Moto billet and not the Extend Air. This rider is a little aggressive, fairly aggressive, and so needs to have the ability to really get back in the saddle for some downhill. And these are a little better for some of that hard enduro type riding. Bulletproof on the levers, Dirt Tricks dome washer, Tacobout oil filter. Let's see, in the air box we have all the great stuff. So we have the twin air filter cage, PC Racing filter gasket, and then a PC Racing filter skin. And then we always put on our accessory harness kit, and that gives us auxiliary power up behind the headlight, and that's what's powering the GPS and the phone and any of those other accessories. Starting capacitor over on that side. Under the seat we have the Get ECU and then the anti-gravity 8-cell battery. So just all the great necessary robust upgrades to the electrics, to the intake system. This bike has the reeds out over here, OD Road grips, bulletproof on the levers. We talked about some of this stuff already. Trailtech Voyager Pro with the upgraded aluminum base, and then he's got the Buddy Tracker antenna located right here. Stout mount, or stout wedge, so moto-minded wedge, tilt wedge, gives us a little bit of an angle to put this in a better viewable position for the rider. Mako 360 on the bar system, and then this is the Tacomoto bracket here that mounts an amps pattern bracket to the Mako 360. Scott stabilizer, suspension has all been customized and gone through. Tacomoto setup, front and rear, revalved, resprung for this rider. The Reflex Racing handguards, Ruby, #1 headlight for us, R7. It's got the yellow lens cover on it, and that's a moto-minded surround. So that light is just adjustable by pushing on it. No tools, it's a toolless, adjustable setup, tremendously cool. Tacomoto on the routing for the front brake cable, and so this is fixed. This does not move. It flexes down here, Yamaha style. Super slick. Same front wheel, the Warp 9 Elite Series, and then the wheels are balanced, and then we've got tubes in there. Tubes because this rider is going to do some highway sections, and so while a Moose is just fine and does do fine on highway sections, he might want to do longer highway sections. So the tubes, we use the Moto's ultra heavy duty tubes. They have slime inside, and then we also grease. We use Moose Lube grease on the tube to prevent and eliminate pinch flats, molecule, skid plate. A lot of times you'll see, they're just so cool. I love putting these fork shrinks on forks. These are more cosmetic than they are protective, other than rock chips and dings. If you're doing really hard enduro, you'd want to look at the what the hell are those called? It'll come to me later. I'll re-mention it. But there's a great snap over hard ABS plastic cover that does a really good job for rock protection. Dingo Racing. I don't mention these enough, but these are just so great. These are the Canyon Dancer, the fork brackets, so you can do your tie downs, and you don't put any. So if you have a bar system, like this bike has got the Mako 360 system, if you had the BRP or PDS, PHDS, anything up here that provides rubber dampening and isolation for the bars, you absolutely do not want to cinch down on your bars. So that will just put stress and pressure and wear out your bar rubber damper systems. So you need something else. You need to attach your hook somewhere else. On these bikes, KTM has recently on the 24 series and some of the Husqvarna bikes with the billet triple clamps. See that little hole right there? That hole is designed to put your hook on there. One of the problems though is you have this interference with the new style headlight mask that has this wing. Previous generation bikes didn't have that little winglet. They do now, and that can interfere. So while it's there, it's just hard to get to, and so this solves that problem. Trailtech on the radiator guards, probably the lightest radiator guard out there, and it is a very good brush guard. And so to me, A radiator guard protects the side of the radiator. This one has no side protection. And so while it's a great front protection, and it's not a ding on the Trail Tech, it's just that when we pick a guard for our radiator for our bikes, we put some thought into, are we trying to protect the front or the side? And there are very few guards out there that protect both front, side, and bottom. This one, ultra light. And that was probably one of the objectives on this bike, is to just be light and aggressive. And so that's probably why that guard was chosen. Fine product there. There's others that do a good job too for that front protection. Let's see. The Acerbis, these are the X muds on the fork stanchions on the bottom, and those keep mud, dirt, debris off the stanchions, out of the fork seals. We've been using those for a long time now, and have just basically eliminated our blown seals have just gone away with those. We dig them a lot. P3 full max on the header guard, Recluse CX 4.0 clutch, absolute legendary setup to do the complete system. So the Recluse clutch with the Get ECU system, traction control, quick shift, dual maps, tacomoto race mode, tacomoto enduro single track mode, all of that together. You just take this bike as a complete package, and it's absolutely a slayer. It's so good for intermediate riders all the way up to ultra advanced riders. An amazing package. This is just a real primo setup. Bulletproof on the brake lever, and then you can see that we've upgraded Samco hoses for ultimate durability, and then we put a heat shield cover across the radiator hoses that transits over the top of the exhaust. There's such a tight clearance area there, so we protect that. We also do a heat shield here to protect the shock from all that heat transiting in and breaking down the oil and causing shock fade and causing faster services on your shock. Tacomoto oil plug, and then the Graves exhaust. And note that we have left the insert in. So the Graves comes really in two personalities. They're very distinct from each other. If you leave the insert in, then you promote a really smooth bottom end first gear. So if you're a rider who favors, say, first through third gear and ride a lot of challenging single track, then you're ideally going to want to leave that in. If you favor 4 through 6 and you like the more aggressive mid to top end power, then taking it out is the way to go. Sound is dramatically changed. This is nowhere near as quiet as stock. Nothing is. This the quietest setup in terms of exhaust. So the best overall exhaust would be the stock muffler with the Pro Moto end cap and the ultra silent insert. But it does leave room on the table for that top end. It does not have the type of top end, mid-range and top end, that a race exhaust like this would. So this is a full-size can. It's got a large volume. So with that insert in there, again, fabulous for single track use for that first through third gear type rider. Pop out the insert, and now you're a Supermoto star. That's great for wide open sand dune type stuff. This rider is going to put paddles on this bike. Again, he's the type of guy who's going to use this bike in so many different use cases. The philosophy of this build was to set up a bike that is adaptable and configurable to basically anything he'd ever want to do to it. And that was the thought behind choosing that muffler there. It also looks great, just absolutely stunning. So that's probably a wrap, probably an overview on this bike. A real fun project for a great rider, and the type of thing that we do and specialize in. You know, we take a lot of time and care in how we set up a bike. We don't just shotgun parts at bikes. We don't sell riders things that we think are cool. We sell them and install things that are absolutely necessary and essential for what they want to do, their goals and objectives on a bike. And that's probably the Taco Touch. That's probably the difference between us and maybe doing a bike project with a less considered approach. And when you get with us, you can communicate with Paul, RTW Paul, get on the phone with Paul, do a call with Paul, and set that up. And then we execute here at our shop in Las Vegas, and we can ship bikes to all states we've had a bunch of bikes just recently go back to the East Coast and to the Midwest. And of course we do builds for riders here in the West. and are happy to work with you wherever you are. We also have a guy that we're working with from England who is very likely going to fly over, pick up his bike, do the TAT, Trans-America Trail, and then have that bike sent back over, and maybe leave it here in the States and just have a bike here in the US that he can come over to and ride and maybe make some moto vacations out of. So we just want to be flexible. We want to be adaptable. We want to help you, make your moto dreams come true, whatever that looks like for you. We are down, totally down with it. So if you have any questions about this bike, anything that's on it, or anything that we do, please hit us up. We're happy to talk anytime. Like, subscribe, go out, get some adventure.